Okay, let's get into this. Merida bikes. In this video we're going to have a look at the Reacto, the Scultura, the Scultura Endurance, and the Silex. Arriba! So Merida bikes. Put your hand up and put a comment down below if Merida bikes get you excited. I've got to be completely honest, I've always found them a little bit meh. A bit like a Marks & Spencer's grey short sleeve work shirt. I'm sure they work perfectly well, but they just leave me a little bit cold. That is until this popped up. The Bahrain Mclaren Merida Reacto, ridden by the World Tour team. Full-blown race bike with tubular wheels on it. And that looks pretty cool, doesn't it? Sure looks like it would go fast. Now Merida have launched the 2021 Reacto, and here is the Team E. That E designates the fact that it comes with an electronic drivetrain, in this case the Dura-Race Di2. Possibly not a great idea to have the E on the end because it could be misconstrued as an electric bike, which it definitely isn't. Would I personally buy a bike in team colours? Probably not. Not sure I could cope with that added pressure of people expecting me to go really fast. So on the Merida website they talk about all the cool new stuff on this. It's even slicker, it's got precise steering, it's got streamlined comfort, it's got flip-flop head, knacker back, and nanomatrix carbon. For me, what I found pretty cool on the Merida website is that you can spin round it in 3D. How cool is that? Why don't all the bike manufacturers do that? What does bug me a wee bit though is that it's slightly on the tilt and this shifter's pointing in more than that one, which is slightly annoying. What you also notice from this is that the top half of the bike, nice and clean and smooth and aerodynamic, and obviously this is the same for all bikes out there. The bottom half is just horrible as far as aerodynamics is concerned. Brakes in the wind, derailleurs in the wind, cogs and hubs and things sticking out all over the place. Hopefully one day we'll see an answer to that and this will all get smoothed out. So out of interest, how does this new Reacto compare to the old one? Well, let's have a look. Fade in between the two. We've obviously lost the hunchback around here. We've hidden away all the cables, so that's cool. And we've lifted up this part of the fork here to allow more tyre clearance. I think you can get up to a 30mm tyre in there. The rear stays have dropped down quite a long way. And out of interest I compared this to the new Tarmac SL7 from Specialized, and look how close the rear stays are. Very similar around here, isn't it? They've changed it up a bit around the back. Forks are quite a bit chunkier as well. So all in all, quite a bit different. I like it. How about if we compare it to that old bike from Specialized, the Venge. Here we go. Here's that old Venge that Specialized used to make all those years ago. Got to be said, I'm going to miss the old Venge now that Specialized have discontinued it. It turns out that Rémi Cavagna from the Koenig Quickstep also misses the Venge, because this is him on his massive lone breakaway in the Tour de France. Can't remember which stage it was, but I think he did about 120k on his own, and he decided to take his old Venge. He must have kept it in the garage somewhere. I wonder how Specialized felt about that after making out on the release of the new SL7 that you didn't have to choose between your aero bike and your lightweight bike anymore. Picture tells 1,000 words. Let's have a quick look at the Reacto against the Trek Madonne. Another aero bike, unbelievably expensive, and super porky, nearly 8 kilos. But supposedly super aero and rather nice to look at, I think. There we go. So like I say, I do like this new Reacto, but I live in a super hilly area, and although I'm always drawn to the aero bike because I think they look the best, actually I'm much better off with a more lightweight all-round climbing bike. So let's have a look at the Scultura. And here it is. This is the Team E Dura-Ace Di2, slightly cheaper at £8,600. To my eye it doesn't quite look as good as the Reacto, but 6.9 kg, that's pretty good. So in the Tour de France just gone, this bike was used by Mclaren and he finished in 4th place, 5 minutes 58 behind Tadej Pogačar. Tadej, let's call him Taddy. So that's a pretty good endorsement for this bike. One would probably argue that the Merida designers are working on a new Scultura. Hopefully it doesn't come out before I finish this video. But if we compare this to the Tarmac SL7, which is of the new breed, you can see some obvious things that they may do to update this bike in the future. hide the cables, make it more aero. Let's wait and see what happens. Again, if we compare it to the new Emonda, we can see a few similarities there, can't we? Quite similar around this section. The Emonda's quite different up the front. A bit more modern looking. If you've seen my video about the new Emonda, you'll know that I'm a big fan. It's a rather lovely looking bike. So this obviously is the top of the range Dura-Ace Di2 version. And this here is the Scultura Force Edition. And you'll notice that there is quite a big change in the geometry, with it being much higher at the front. So basically what happens, I think there's 3 models that are made from the CF4 carbon, but then when we drop down to the CF2 carbon, that's where the geometry changes. Now if you're just browsing through the website, you don't necessarily notice that, but that is something to be aware of if you are looking to buy a Scultura. So following on from that more relaxed geometry on the less expensive Sculpturas, Merida have now also launched the Scultura Endurance, which looks like this. And if we just do a 50-50 here, you can see that it's even quite a lot taller at the front than the more relaxed Scultura. What can I say about this bike? Well, if you're looking for a comfortable ride, I guess this might pop up on your radar. For me personally, I find it a little bit ugly. Not really my cup of tea. Not sure about the sort of hybrid hidden cables here. I guess the clue is in the name. It's an endurance bike, and if that's what you're after, I'm sure it is a good choice. On that bombshell, let's move on to the next bike. The Cylon. Oh, hang on, got that wrong. The Silex. Interesting name here from Merida. This is the Silex 700, and I think this is about 3 down in the range. It's actually one of the aluminium ones, but the reason I'm showing this one is that the 2 top of the range are the Silex Plus, and they've got 650B wheels, which aren't great to compare against the 700C of all the other bikes in this stack. So if we compare this to the Scultura Endurance, it actually makes it look quite small, even though we know it's quite big in comparison to the normal Scultura. And that's because, of course, this is a gravel bike, and the bigger your bike, the longer it is, the more it's going to absorb the chunky stuff off-road, gravel, and higher again at the front. If we get much higher on these bikes, we're going to start falling off the back. So it's a bit of a chunky chunks to this one, coming in at 10.09 kilograms. But it's nice and, well, I was going to say cheap then. I guess £2,000 isn't actually cheap, but in comparison to the other bikes we've been looking at, that is pretty cheap. And just for a bit of a laugh, let's compare this against the Scultura. Look how small that looks now. It's like a little baby bike. Now if you follow my videos, you'll know that I did a specialized Diverge range video. Let's compare it to a similarly priced Diverge. So this here is the Diverge Comp E5. And this goes to show what a difference Merida and Specialized have when it comes to what a gravel bike should look like. They're super different. So what I've done here is added each bike from the range of each of the models that we've looked at. So this section here is Reacto, Scultura, Scultura Endurance, Silex. In blue is the price, in red is the weight as listed on the UK website. Thank you Merida for listing your weight. So looking at this data, the first question is, if I had all the money in the world, which bike would I buy? And actually that's the easiest question to answer really, because you'd obviously pick the most expensive ones. So you'd be looking at these 4 here. The Team E, the 9000E, the Scultura Team E, and the Scultura 9000E. Easy peasy. And if I had the luxury of this choice, I'd... Well, that's a good question actually. It's not that easy, because I'd want to go for the lightweight climbing bike, but I wouldn't want the Bahrain Merida colours. So I would go for this one, other than I'm not completely sold on SRAM Access, if I'm completely honest. I'd rather have the Dura-Ace. So I'm actually out of choices there. Save my money. Okay, back to the data. How about if I wanted a winter bike? I guess you could have a gravel bike as a winter bike, but personally I wouldn't. I guess you might look at the Scultura Endurance, but I prefer to have an aluminium frame. So the only aluminium bikes within this set of Merida bikes is the Scultura 400, and I'd want disc brakes, so the rim version's no good, or the 200. There's the 400, here's the 200. Now I definitely wouldn't buy the 200 because it's super heavy, and personally I wouldn't buy cable brakes ever again because I made that mistake once and they were awful. So if I was going to get a Merida winter bike, it would be the Scultura 400 with 105 on it, which is a great group set, but I would shop around because I reckon I could get something for a bit less than that. So not 100% that I would buy a Merida in that case. So the Scultura Endurance, you've got the one that we looked at, you've got the 6000, and you've got the 4000. For me personally right now, I can't see an instance where I'd want to buy one of these, but that's just me. But what about the Silex bikes? There's a few to choose from there. You've got the Silex Plus 8000E, which has got the 650B wheels on. The 6000 Plus also got 650B wheels on. The 700, the one we looked at, the 400 and the 200. So that's a pretty good spread of prices and choices there. But for me personally, I think I'm always going to be more interested in a hardtail mountain bike than a gravel bike. Where I live, I've not managed to find hundreds of miles of gravel track or fire road that doesn't just turn into a muddy bog during the winter. And the trails that I ride on my mountain bike I wouldn't really want to do on a drop bar bike, so I'm out as far as regard to a gravel bike, and you can get an awful lot for your money in the mountain bike world. So this Grand Canyon 7, £1,149, 29-inch wheels, it's even got a dropper post, look, SRAM Eagle, that seems like a pretty good deal to me. Okay, so what about best value? Well, how about the Scultura Rim 400? 8.16 kilograms, £1,000, which is this bike here. Now if you consider that the disc version of that is £600 more and is a lot heavier, I think this is a pretty good buy, and I've said it a million times before. If you stick on a decent wheel set, what about say the Hunt Race Aero wide wheel set, £379, pretty light really, pretty cheap. Stick on some top of the range tyres because they're only £100, go tubeless, this bike's going to rock. Fantastic group set, not a stupid idea at all. So what would I actually buy? Well, up until a few years ago, this is what a lot of my Strava profiles used to look like, completely flat, because that was the area that I lived in. In that case, I'd obviously be looking at the Reactos, and probably be looking at this one here, the 6000, because the Ultegra Di2, that's too much. Force ETAP, that's too much. Getting closer, but a 7000, still a bit much. So then you've got the 6000, Ultegra Mechanical, about the right price that I'd want to pay. But do bear in mind there is a 4000, quite a bit cheaper, fractionally heavier. And let's face it, the 105 group set, it's not far off the Ultegra, is it? So if you did go down to the 4000, you could put a decent pair of wheels on this. So why not? There is the 5000, which has got the Bahrain Merida paint job, but that's got the rather heavy Shimano crankset on it, not the Ultegra one. What is quite funny is if you were to show this to your non-bike friends and say you can either have this bike here, 2,450, or you can have this one, 9,000. And if you fade between the two like this, your non-bike friend would be looking at that and thinking, are you mad? Why would I pay 9,000 when I can have this one for 2,450? But now I live in a place where my Strava profiles look much more like this, a complete nightmare of hills. So that means that the Reacto becomes completely useless to me. Well, not completely useless, but you know what I mean. So I would definitely look more at the Scultura range. And looking at the prices, it would definitely be more like this one here, the 6000, because the Di2 one again, too much. Force Edition, too much. 3.6, still a bit too much. So it's this one here, isn't it? Wouldn't want the Bahrain one. And then we're down to the aluminium, which I talked about as a winter bike. So it's this one here. But as we talked about earlier, there is a catch with that, in that that model has got the more relaxed geometry on it. I'd be looking at buying this as my race bike. So that would kind of put me off, if I'm honest. And it's not exactly light, is it? You can definitely get, you might have to pay more like 3 grand, but you can definitely get lighter than that. So there we go. I guess that kind of means I'm out, and I'm not going to be rushing out to buy a Merida. But everybody's different, that's just my opinion. Feel free to let me know down in the comments if I've got that all completely wrong and that you love your Merida. I would definitely like to hear about that. And if you like this video and found it of any use to you whatsoever, subscribe to my channel and give it a thumbs up. Until next time.